What is the most rich thing you've seen wealthy people say to casually? Part 2. The wealthy parents of my friend were going to give me a set of furniture for free, until I ended up moving to the other side of the country. I couldn't accept it. Before accepting it, I asked for the manufacturer's name to take measurements in my house, so that everything would fit. They responded, "Oh, we're not sure, it's quite old." Here I thought maybe it was from the 70s. Yes, it was from the 70s. The darn 1870s, from France, and they were all handmade pieces from Louis XV. When I showed all this to my home decor-obsessed mother, she appraised everything. Some were over $5,000, just for a small hallway desk. We're both upset about that to this day. Once I worked at a millionaire's wedding. They threw away $50,000 worth of flowers after the ceremony. They didn't even wait for the wedding to end or donate the flowers. Upon being surprised that airlines allow a backpack that looks larger in the overhead compartment, he said, "Oh, it's been so long since I flew commercially, I had no idea." He said it so shyly as if he were embarrassed to say that he flies privately. He's a 75-year-old man who looks like a regular middle-class Joe and gives no indication that he's extremely wealthy. This is what I'm used to seeing in wealthy people I know. This sums them up perfectly in 2 ways. They often feel embarrassed about their wealth. My friend's wife made him sell an exotic car he had just bought because she thought it was for showing off. They would also correct their kids every time they let slip that they had a private jet or houses in other countries. They are often disconnected when it comes to things most people experience, like traveling on commercial airplanes. When I was in college, I saw this almost every time I interacted with the parents of a good friend. They had a net worth in the hundreds of millions. His mother would point out that the tires on my car were starting to wear out and then be completely surprised when I told her I didn't have the money to replace all 4 tires. Another time they invited me to go on vacation with them and she couldn't grasp the idea that I didn't have cash for plane tickets to Europe. Haha. Number 1 is my best friend to AT. Almost the only way to upset her is if you start boasting about how rich she is. Although she says it's largely for security reasons due to kidnappings or robberies. She often forgets that people can't afford things, but her primary love language, both for her and her husband, is giving gifts. They'll buy extravagant gifts like it's nothing. Once I asked her for help finding a new apartment because my rent was going to be $3,000 a month in Queens and I couldn't afford it. I thought she would help me find a more affordable place because she's very good at researching those things. Her solution was to buy a $1.5 million condo, spend $100,000 furnishing it, and then rent it to me for $1. Her husband was very proud of her creative solution. Some of the things she bought for him were ridiculous, like complaining that the toilets weren't very good, so she spent $11,000 on 2 new ones for him. At no point during the process did it occur to her to say no. Once something is proposed, you either accept it or get run over. The most I could do was choose the fabric for the custom-made furniture for my condo. If she noticed that your car tires were worn out and asked you why, "I'm too poor to buy new ones," would only lead her to call tire stores to buy you new ones. Again, no is not an option. She went out to lunch with a girl she met at a club yesterday, and when she found out the girl was excited to take home leftovers because she had nothing to eat at home, she dragged her to a grocery store after that. "I can't today. I have things to do." "Only God, I wasn't asking. Let's go right now." I'm not sure how wealthy they are. I know they're worth hundreds of millions, and they both come from families worth much more than that. Her husband threw a party a month ago because he made $24 million, $2 million a month, after taxes last year. That's real income, not net worth increase. In 1994, I saw the CEO and founder of my employer, with an estimated net worth of at least $100 million, drop a $20 bill and other bills on the sidewalk. He glanced at it and then kept walking. I'm a professor at a private university. In October, I was talking to one of my students about a hurricane heading towards Miami and how bad it could be for the people living there. The student, who was from Chicago, said in acknowledgement, "Yeah, my family had to have our captain move our boat. I think it was Hurricane Matthew and it turned north before hitting Miami." Most of my clients are multimillionaires, and most of them take everything in stride, especially when it comes to housing. They don't care at all about the cost of things, and they approve almost anything. Once I set off the alarm at a client's ski house, and I called them to tell them it was me. I had never spoken to this particular client before and I told them to ignore it. They didn't even ask me to verify who I was, and at that moment I had no reason to think it wasn't their second home. They were very grateful for the phone call, but they said which house was it, which caught me off guard, and I said, "Oh, At the ski resort, and they said yes, but which one? I died inside. It was an $8 million house, and in the 2 years I had worked for them up to that point, they hadn't even been here. Later I found out that their family has expensive homes in almost every popular ski resort in North America. Another example is that I'm currently doing a remodel. It's the third complete remodel in 10 years on this multi-million-dollar house/condo. They remodel the house every time a new child is born into the family. This is a $500,000 remodel to undo exactly what we did 4 years ago, which was a remodel of about $300,000. Other clients I've seen replace all the appliances in their kitchen every 3 to 5 years. They have to have absolutely new things. They're also crazy and don't want things sold. They worry about public image, so I have to provide proof that the $30,000 in appliances were actually disposed of in the landfill. Our world is broken. To be fair, about 20% of them are really good people. They show up, even cook for me. They give great bonuses and are generally good human beings. They're happy to have someone to trust, and they trust. They let my friends stay in their million-dollar homes for free. But these people are almost exclusively the rare wealthy who are wealthy through work, people who spent 40 to 50 years in law or medicine, contractors who got lucky, the occasional cryptocurrency bro who was working class, bet his life savings, and won. The ones who are cliché rich, born into it, Fortune 500 types. They're jerks and they've called me to help more than once. I saw a guy walk into a car dealership and buy a Suburban. He literally walks in, goes up to a salesman, points at the one in the showroom, and says, "I'll take it. I don't want to haggle or any high-pressure nonsense. I'll pay full price and need to be done in 10 minutes. He was driving it out of there 10 minutes later. I asked the other salesman who the hell is that. He says he owns a bunch of fast food restaurants, Pizza Huts and KFCs and stuff, I think. He comes in every few months. What does he do with the cars? I asked. Sometimes he trades them in for others. Sometimes he transfers them to friends or family. He gave his old Corvette to our secretary. He said he was about to die anyway. It only had like 50,000 miles. She still has it. It's been 3 years. We went to a wedding as guests at a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, the bride's parents' house. Her father was talking about landscaping and how his wife liked a rock, the size of a small car, that was at their other house outside of Denver, so they had the rock moved from Denver to Connecticut. Seriously, they moved a rock across the country. A damn rock. While we were installing a wireless access point in their home theater, my son crashed and totaled his Mercedes. The owner said, "Will you guys be ready before he gets back? We need to take him to get another one." A former girlfriend of mine received a new BMW for her birthday, but she was quite upset when the convertible version came out a few months later. She planned to crash her car to get the new one. Girl, you don't crash your car to get a new one. That's really messed up to do. But my dad really won't mind spending the money. You don't crash your car. Let's just talk to him, or the dealership or whatever. But it would be so much easier to crash this one and buy a new one. Don't crash your car.
The first time I met my partner's uncle, he said almost exactly that. Except it was one of those super luxury SUVs, and the son had just gotten out of jail. But the man really said, "Now I have to buy him another," as if it was just an annoying task for the afternoon. They're not even rich. They have farm money, not industrial farm money, you know. People surprise.
It reminds me of the guy I knew in high school, who crashed his new BMW M3, so his parents just bought him another one. He wrecked that one too, while racing with his brother through a cornfield. So they bought him another one. You can imagine what happened next. No matter how rich you are, if you have to buy your teenage son 3 $100,000 cars within a 12-month period, then money isn't the point. Maybe at least think about investing in some better driving lessons for the boy while you're at it, if not actually teaching him a lesson about the value and pride of ownership too. I witnessed a guy park in a bus zone in front of a parking enforcement officer. They told him he couldn't park there. He said, "Have the towing company park it for me, then someone will pick it up later." This guy I knew, my dad's father's friend, had a really nice house and owned a clothing factory. My dad did pretty well. He has a big apartment in New York with 4 rooms. This guy went to my dad's house, at first asked where the rest of the house was, then told him his closet was bigger than his house. He wasn't lying. We went to his house. His gym had like 40 different treadmills, rowing machines, and those Body by Jake band machines. Plus, the dressing rooms were actually bigger than my dad's rooms. His son had almost every game for every system. I, at 15, was amazed. All the systems neatly stacked games on a giant wall and a huge projection TV on his wall. The last I heard of him was at my dad's job. This guy was my dad's boss, asking for $98,000 to go on vacation. The accountants were upset because he asked for it without notice. Sidebar, this guy smoked joints in meetings and came to meetings in his home clothes. He'd interrupt meetings to order pizza or sandwiches for everyone else at work. It was hilarious. Everyone in the office looks professional, and he's in sweatpants with a joint eating food. This may pale in comparison to some, but this guy paid me $100 just to go up to the pianist at the fancy restaurant where I worked and hand him $500 to play another Elvis song. He's a Texas oil guy. I heard the owner of a restaurant ask one of the employees if he had any plans for the summer or hobbies. The barista responded, "I like to read, hike, and go out when I can, I guess." And the owner responded, "Yeah, going out is great. I'm starting to sail this summer for that." Well, this may not be a rich people thing. I don't know, maybe an unexpected thing from wealthy people, but it was memorable. About 15 years ago, I took a few days off right before Christmas. I took my AR-15 to the Scottsdale Gun Club shooting range, which is a pretty public shooting range that also rents guns. So I'm in my lane with my AR and some handguns, shooting. In the lane next to me I noticed two older guys, one dressed in a suit and the other more casually dressed. They're shooting a handgun, like a .38 or 9mm. I can't help but notice that the guy in the suit looks familiar to me. 10 minutes later, I realize who he is. It's the self-made billionaire founder and owner of Discount Tire Company. I know him because my wife worked there and I had seen him at their annual company Christmas parties. Super nice guy. His first name is Bruce. Basically the richest person in Arizona. So when I have the chance, I get his attention, and he's all smiles because he's a nice guy, super friendly, shaking my hand, etc. Like an idiot, I'm trying to talk to him and tell him my wife works there, etc., which is silly because we're in an active shooting range with hearing protection on and he's like 80 years old. Anyway, I notice that while he's talking to me, he keeps glancing over at my lane. I realize he's looking at my AR, which is tricked out with accessories, has a bipod, and looks badass. Noticing this, I step aside and gesture if he'd like to hold it. I give him a quick rundown on how the magazine, trigger, charging handle, and safety work. He's watching and smiling. Then I hand him the rifle and give him a magazine and show him how to load it. By that point, the other guy he was with has stopped shooting and is now watching us. The billionaire steps into my lane, fires off about 10 rounds at the paper target, his smile growing with each one. Then he turns, sets the rifle down, and turns back to me with a big smile, grabs me by the shoulder, and vigorously shakes my hand. I give a quick salute and he goes back to his friend. They close up their gun and head back to the main showroom area. So I finish my session. I'm there for another 20 minutes or so, then pack up and get ready to leave. When I leave the shooting area and head back to the main showroom, I find the other guy is now there waiting for me. He shakes my hand and starts profusely thanking me, saying, "Mr. Halley really enjoyed that." Mr. Halley is what everyone called him. He pulls out a little notebook and asks me for my name, my wife's name. So I say, sure, and give him that information. Then I stop to ask him what happened. What was all that about? He tells me this is an annual tradition for Mr. Halley. His wife hates firearms and doesn't allow him to have one, but once a year, he's allowed to go to the shooting range, rent a handgun, and shoot, and this was that time. Meanwhile, this guy could buy the building we're in and 100 times more. He thanks me again and tells me how much it meant to him. I say, okay, great, and then we part ways. I go back home and that night I tell the story to my wife. She says, okay, but doesn't think much of it. A few weeks go by and one day she's at work, and her phone rings. It's the billionaire's assistant. "Are you at your desk? Mr. Halley is on his way." She's frozen in panic and like, what the hell? There are like 2,000 people in that office and why is he coming to see her? So 2 minutes later, he shows up, and he's got a big box of stuff with him. He starts by greeting her and starts telling her the story about me and the shooting range. After she stops panicking and relaxes, he comes into her cubicle and pulls up a chair and starts chatting with her about pictures of our kids, starts asking about me, vacation photos, cruises, etc., and several other things. Then he tells her again how happy he was to have met me. The box he brought is full of gifts for our kids, toy cars, books, stuffed animals, and other tire-related stuff. Nothing very extravagant, just some thoughtful gifts. Clearly, he had done some research because he knew we had 2 kids and knew where to find her cubicle, so he had checked it out before approaching her. And that's my story. I guess it goes to show that money can't buy everything, and that sometimes even billionaires could use a little kindness, and appreciate it. And well, friends, that was all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, let me know with a thumbs up so that YouTube can share these stories with more people. Remember to hit the bell icon to be the first to know when we upload a new video. See you next time.